What's up, y'all? This is Sunny. I'm back with another video. Hope y'all are having a great day. I'm just driving, gonna go get something to eat. I just got off work. It's about almost 80 degrees here in Seattle. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the biggest lie that Stephen Lett ever told. Now, the biggest lie that man ever told was when he said that the Jehovah's Witnesses organization are not permissive of the behavior of pedophiles.
Think about the apostate-driven lies and dishonesties that Jehovah's organization is permissive toward pedophiles. I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it? If anybody takes action against someone who would threaten our young ones and takes action to protect our young ones, it's Jehovah's organization.
So he said that all of these reports that the Jehovah's Witnesses have taken a permissive attitude towards pedophiles, he said that those are apostate-driven lies. Now, that's a lie. And what makes that such a heinous lie is the wording. Well, there's a couple of reasons why him saying that is why that's such a horrible thing for him to say. And the first reason is because he knows that it's not true. He knows how bad, if anybody knows, that governing body knows how bad of a reputation the Jehovah's Witnesses have on how they handle these child abuse cases and all the lawsuits that they've had to pay for. So he knows that those words are lies, right? And the other reason why it's so terrible that he said that is because he invoked the term apostate, right? He said that he referred to anybody who dares make these reports of allegations and dares to tell the truth about the Jehovah's Witnesses and how they handle situations with child abuse. He referred to them as apostates. Now, apostate, that's the worst swear word that any Jehovah's Witness could ever say to anyone, is to call them an apostate, right? And when you think about it, there has to be current Jehovah's Witnesses right now who have suffered abuse but have not left the organization, right? But yet and still they dared to tell what happened to them, to tell their story, right? Maybe they've gone to their parents or they've gone to the elders and they've said what happened to them, right? And yet they weren't believed, right? So they've had to cope with that. How do you think someone would feel in that situation, being referred to by Stephen Lett as an apostate, right? Anybody who goes out and is brave enough to talk about the abuse that they maybe suffered, these are apostate-driven lies. You're an apostate if you are so bold that you would talk about what happened to you, right? And these are people that may or may not have left the organization. We know that there's many who have left the organization, and maybe because of the abuse that they suffered, right? I suffered abuse. That's not primarily why I left, but that's hurtful. And it shows what kind of a man Stephen Lett is, that he would use wording so insensitive, to the people that have already suffered, people that have suffered the most, right? Apostate-driven lies, right? And think about this too. Who are the people, generally speaking, most susceptible to being abused? It's our young people. It's young people, young children, right? But it's no surprise that Stephen Lett would be so insensitive. I mean, because think about what he just recently said about babies. Babies are just enemies of God. A man so sensitive, a man so rotten, that his heart would motivate him to refer to babies as enemies of God. That's not something that it's above and beyond. The man, he's just evil. It indicates the evil that is present in that governing body, right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We know that governing body has said things. Think about the things that Toni Morris has said. I don't want to go too deeply into that because that's not those things aren't the point of this video. I wanted to illustrate to you guys just how just how bad of a lie that was. I want to illustrate to you guys just how welcoming and permissive the Jehovah's Witnesses really are to people who abuse children. I can tell you from my own experience, and I've actually done so on my channel, about how the person it was my uncle who abused me, and I can talk to you guys about, you know, the attitude that there was an elder in my congregation who studied with the person who abused me, and I could go on and on about just how welcoming that elder was, just how loving that elder was towards that person who abused me. I could talk about that. I've done it in a previous video. Maybe I'll come back and touch on it a little bit more at the end. But I will tell you guys that in my congregation was one that pedophilia was a problem in my congregation. There were a number of individuals guilty of that crime. And it's not that I could talk about rumors. I'm not going to talk about rumors or anything about people in the organization, because none of that was confirmed to me. Things were in the air about certain individuals. I'm not going to even touch on, I could, but I'm not going to talk about individuals where it was in the air that this person may or may not have done so, because that's speculation, because I don't have proof. I will talk to you guys, and I'll give you guys some anecdotal evidence about someone who was a person that was just passing through my congregation, by which I mean he popped up, and this happens a lot in the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, where someone will pop up and they'll be super duper gung-ho, and there'll be a new face, and you know, there'll be someone who has all this, they're so zealous, you know, and they'll be there for a little while and then they'll disappear. We had a kid in my congregation, the Clover Park congregation, where that happened. I was in my late teens at the time. Maybe I was in my early 20s. I can't remember. Probably late teens. But this person popped up. And see, I'll tell you guys another thing about my home congregation. My home congregation was right next to a mental institution. And part of this mental institution, it was a halfway house, right? And so in my congregation, the Clover Park congregation, there's a program where elders and male publishers would go out to the it was called the pre-release program. And we would go out and we would study with criminals, right? We would study with criminals who were in the halfway house on their way back into society, right? And it just indicates that the Jehovah's Witnesses, they welcome anybody. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a murderer. I've heard YouTube videos about people who write letters to murderers. They do correspondence back and forth with these hardened criminals, people that will never get out of prison, because they feel like they're doing, you know, because they feel like so that they can count time. They're so gung-ho about this ministry. So anyways, that was a part of the ministry in the Clover Park congregation, is we'd go to the pre-release. And I imagine that that's how this kid ended up coming to Clover Park, because he wasn't related to anybody in Clover Park. And I'm going to illustrate to you guys, again, the anecdotal evidence that leads me to believe that this person was a criminal, and at some point very likely was someone who had, you know, been a child abuser. So during this time, I was still living with my parents, and we had book study in our home. We had book study in our house. It was me, my mom, and my dad, my stepfather, and we had book study there. And this kid was he ended up attending that book study. Now, the brother, the elder that conducted that book study, this actually ended up being the brother who later on would end up studying the Bible with my uncle, the person who abused me, right? So, and that brother had several children. He had several young children, and there were kids aside from his kids who were quite young at the time. There were also other young children that attended that book study. So I'm in that book study. This kid that I'm talking about is in that book study, and we'd go to book study. And I remember afterwards, we had the chairs situated in a circle in our living room, and I went to sit down, and this kid went to sit down. At that time, I'm not sure if I knew whether or not this person was a child abuser. I don't know if I knew. I feel like it was in the air. But I went to sit down. This kid went to sit down next to me, and there was a very young person that was going to be sitting down next to him, right? And before we sat, this kid looked over at me and he shook his head and he said, I can't. And that meant that he could not sit down next to this child, right? He couldn't sit down to this young, he couldn't sit down next to this young child, and he knew it, right? So, as I said, it was already in the air that this person maybe had done something to somebody, but that confirmed it to me. That confirmed it. So, that happens. Now, I want to tell you guys something that this kid said to me. He said this to me, and this is one of the most shocking things that I have ever heard in my life. We got to talking about child abuse. This kid said to me, and again, I'm saying this to illustrate to you guys the spirit that exists in the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, the spirit that permeates the Jehovah's Witnesses organization with regards to child abusers, right? This kid said to me, and I call him a kid, he was in his late teens just like I was, maybe early 20s, I can't remember. He said, I need to find this person who did this to me. I think he said my dad, or I can't remember if it was dad, uncle, I can't remember. But I need to find this person who abused me when I was a child so that I can forgive this person. That's what he said to me. Right? Think about that. This person is saying to me, this person who's new to the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, he's saying to me, for whatever reason, I don't even know how we got on the subject, that he needs to find the person that abused him as a child so that he could forgive this person. Does that make any sense to you? Have you ever heard of anything like that? And I reacted when he said it. I was like, what are you talking about? I said, that's not right. I can't remember exactly what I said, but that doesn't make sense. That's not right. You know what he says to me? He said, no, you don't understand. And I cut him off when he said that. I said, no, I do understand, because I'm someone who also suffered abuse. That's not right. And I didn't really prolong the conversation. I sort of just said that and walked away, and it was never, I didn't really have anything else to do with that person from that point on. So what I'm saying is that it's one thing if you want to accept the apology of someone who has gone out of their way to find you and has begged you for forgiveness for this heinous crime that they've committed against you. I could never forgive the person who did that to me. I couldn't do it. I guess, I don't know if that makes me a bad person, someone who cannot forgive that crime, but I just personally can't. But as I said, it's one thing if an individual, for whatever reason, wants to tell me that the person who abused them approached them and begged for forgiveness, and that person forgave them. That's one thing. But to say to me, an abuse victim, that you need to seek out the person who did that to you, seek that person out so that you could find this person and forgive them, go out of your way to forgive this person for what he did to you, maybe someone who's not even interested in asking you for forgiveness, If you want to say something like that to me, that's crazy. I can't accept that. That's crazy. But as I said, this is something that this individual said to me. This is a reflection of the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. That this person who was new to this organization, he was motivated to make that statement. And to me, that's wrong. It's bizarre. And it just indicates to me the spirit, again, that permeates the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, and just how big of a lie it was that Stephen Lett said what he said. And it's just like I've always said, if you ever want to get a mirror into the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, if you want to see a mirror into the Jehovah's Witnesses and know exactly what that organization is like, like if you want to get the exact lowdown on the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, look at somebody who's brand new. Look at a brand new Bible study in someone who's super duper zealous, someone who's just hearing this stuff for the first time, someone who's just for the first time being love bombed by the Jehovah's Witness. What you see is like they're a reflection of all of the Jehovah's Witnesses, what that organization values, what that organization holds dear, the spirit of that organization, right? And so you have this person you have this pedophile, this person who clearly to me has done something to children to where he's not allowed to sit down next to them, right? And you see just how you see his spirit, you see his attitude, right? And really, especially for someone who's a criminal, especially for someone who's a pedophile, you can see why they'd be so zealous and so zealous and gung-ho for this organization, because they finally found a group of people that will accept them, right? They finally found a group of people that is able to look beyond these awful, heinous crimes that they have done. They found a group of people who doesn't have a problem allowing their young children to be near them, right? Allowing their young children to be in a room where they're mere feet from them, right? They finally found an organization who accepts them. And if you think that these criminals, these pedophiles will not exploit that attitude, you're absolutely deluded, right? These people, I've said it before, they're snakes, they're slimy, they're always, what they're doing is they're thinking about getting access to children. That's what they're thinking about, right? And here they found an organization that is so naive that they just look beyond anything and everything about this individual, and they will accept them. They will study with them. They'll sit in a room with them. They'll eat with them. They'll go out and buy meeting clothes with them, right? They'll defend them when maybe their victim calls the whole situation out for how absurd it is, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses organization will, to the point of actually protecting that person. I've heard reports, I've seen the YouTube videos, right? One of the first people who I ever started watching on YouTube, she amazing person. I think she stopped making videos. I'm gonna try to remember her name, but I believe she was Canadian. I don't want to speculate because I just can't remember. Maybe I'll do an overlay where I make reference to who this person was. But in her video, she talked about that was the dynamic, a situation that she was aware of, where the congregation was protecting the pedophile, and the victim was like, you guys can keep him, I'm out of here. So this is that organization. That is the spirit that permeates the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. And I know many of you are not surprised, because many of you watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've experienced it yourself. You know just like Stephen Lett knows that the Jehovah's Witnesses organization, not only are they permissive of the behavior of these criminals, these pedophiles, but they absolutely positively welcome these people into that organization, right? Why else would this person, what on earth would motivate a person to feel like he needs to seek out the person that abused him for the purpose of forgiving that person, right? And I'll tell you something else. That's not the last time I heard something like that. That's not the last time I heard somebody say something that horrible, that bizarre, that shocking. My mom said almost those exact same words to me, right? Of all people, right? I talked about this in one of my previous videos. You know, my mom said to me, she said, you know, because we talk about what happened to me, the abuse that I suffered, and how they could be so, the person that actually abused me, that person was part of our book study at one time. And she knows what that guy did to me when I was 7 years old. She knows. My stepfather knows what that man did to me. But there was a time around 2000, maybe a little bit before that, when my abuser was part of our book study. He was part of our book study. I lived with them at the time. I would go to the book study. I was very much one of Jehovah's Witnesses at the time, and he was studying to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But my parents welcomed him into their home to raise his hand and to smile, right? To try to testify to what he believes about this organization. He would try to talk to me. He would try to shuck and jive with me. My parents, I go very in depth in one of my previous videos, and I'm so disgusted just when I think about it that I'm not even gonna. If you wanna hear, watch that video, because I go really deep about how that all went down. And many years later, I called my mom. You know, I called the elder who studied with my uncle. I called him out, called my parents out about it too. My mom said to me, she said, "Why can't you learn to forgive?" In reference to what my uncle did to me. Why can't you learn to forgive? That's what she said to me. Sounds pretty familiar to what that kid said that I was just talking about. He said he needs to seek out the person who did that to him for the purpose of forgiving him, so that he could forgive him. My mom said to me many years later, she said, "Why can't you learn to forgive my uncle who did that to me?" And I was so shocked when she said that at first I couldn't believe it. You know, I couldn't believe that those words, I didn't believe it, actually. I felt like I must have misheard her, that those words couldn't have come out of her mouth. And so some weeks later, we talked about it again, and I asked her, I reiterated it. I asked her if she had really said that to me, even though I knew that she had because I heard her. And she reconfirmed that's what she said. Why can't you learn to forgive the person who did that to me? And I'm gonna tell you guys, I don't know. I don't like talking about my mom. You know, nobody wants to have anything negative to say about their mom, right? But I have to, because this is true. Everything that I'm saying to you is true. She said these things. And so even later, I told you that she said that to me. I asked her about it again, and she confirmed that she said that to me. And then sometime later, I asked her again. I told her, you know, I called her out for saying that to me. And you know what she did? She denied that she ever said it. We were texting, and she denied that she ever said that to me. That she ever said that, why can't you learn to forgive, in reference to my uncle that had done that to me. So, it's hard. You know, it's hard for me to say that my mom did that. But she did, and it indicates, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance. I don't know if being in that organization makes you that crazy that you would say something like that and then deny that you ever said it. It just speaks to that organization. You know, it's an organization that absolutely positively welcomes these pedophiles. It welcomes those individuals into the organization. It's an organization that will welcome anybody that professes to believe their message. They are welcomed with open arms into that organization. I watched a video recently where a guy was talking about how and this is a man who has daughters, and he said that there was a pedophile that moved into his congregation, and he got in trouble for telling the other members of the congregation to look on the sex offender registry, you know, for their neighborhood. He got in trouble for doing that. He got in trouble for doing that because he wanted to caution other individuals in his congregation about this person that he knew was a pedophile. He told this person, he told another person in his congregation to look at the sex offender registry, because you can do that. No matter where you live in the United States, you can see all the sex offenders that live in your neighborhood. And he felt like he needed to, and I believe he was an elder at the time. I'll try to drop a link to that video. And he couldn't stand for it. He wanted people to know that this person in his kingdom hall, in their kingdom hall, was a pedophile. And so he advised someone else in the congregation to just look on the sex offender registry, and he got in trouble for that. So it's an organization that absolutely is permissive of the behavior of these pedophiles. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. It's the truth. Stephen Lett is a liar. Stephen Lett is a hateful individual. He spoke in the harshest terms about people that have had the worst things done to them. Apostate-driven lies is what he said. Many of the people, think about the people that were part of the Royal Commission, people that were going up there telling their testimony, people that the Jehovah's Witnesses organization have had to pay because of the abuse that they suffered as part of that organization, lawsuits that they've had to settle. How insensitive is it of that man to refer to those people as nothing more than apostates? It's horrible. It's evil. This is the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. Right? I'm saying these things because I want these words. YouTube ain't going anywhere. This video is going to be on YouTube for as long as YouTube will have me. Right? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I want people, if the Jehovah's Witnesses organization is still around, to find my testimony, to find your testimony if you've made videos, to find Lady C and JT's videos, you know, to find ex-Walkill Bethelite's videos, to find ExJW Fifth's videos, right? To find all of these videos of people who have told their stories. And I want you guys to see just how awful this organization is. That governing body, they are evil and rotten. Stephen Lett referred to babies as enemies of God.
Sometimes you'll hear people say of a little baby, "Look at that little angel." But more accurate would be to say, "Look at that little enemy of God."
How could he? How could a man say that? How could any man say that? But he said it. That man got up there on stage and he spoke to millions of people, and he said babies are enemies of God. He had so many chances to think about that, to think about how rotten of a thing that is to say. There's no context where saying something like that is acceptable, but he said it. I'm not going to drag this video on any longer. Thank you all for listening. You know, I don't normally do videos in portrait mode, but I've been wanting to get this one out for such a long time, and I was having trouble doing it like I normally do in widescreen. but I'm able to be more relaxed when I'm in my car driving. But I just wanted to get this one out. So I thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.